You know, these kind of articles make me physically sick because here are the people that lent out all the money, like the Royal Bank of Canada, saying we're entering a recession, and they and the government are the ones that caused this recession. So let's dig right into this. First of all, I want to show you this chart because it pretty much outlines what everybody needs to see. And I put this in the video that I released yesterday. And this is a chart of household debt. It goes all the way back to the 1990s. And what you can see from this chart is you can see it's absolutely skyrocketed from around the early 2000s, and the bubble has just kept on being inflated. You can even see when politically Justin Trudeau got in charge and the government started spending loads of money and deficit spending, again the bubble went up again, and then it peaked out, and now we are coming back down. But boy, do we have a long slope down here. It is absolutely colossal, and this is just looking at the household debt chart. If you look at the private debt, so this is corporations, you can see that from 2008, the government of that time, which was Stephen Harper, decided that it was a good idea to inflate a private sector debt bubble. So you have a household sector bubble and you have a private sector bubble in Canada, one of the largest debt bubbles in the world. And now you have this coming. A recession in Canada will likely strike soon. Sooner than first predicted, Royal Bank says. So it's pretty interesting, really, that they're coming out with this right now. What I find interesting about this is, you know, the fact that they lent out so much money last year. You know, a lot of people don't really understand what went on last year. Well, essentially, it was no risk to the banks, because in 2020, the banks were getting all their mortgages bought by the central bank. It was a complete Ponzi scheme, and that convinced the banks that, hey, we can just lend to anybody. We can lend to your dog, your cat, whoever you want. And that's essentially what happened. Now, I'm not saying that they actually legitimately did go to the dog and cat, but I'm saying that they lent to everybody. Anybody who met the requirements, just lend to them. Doesn't matter. We do not even know the scope of how far this runs deep. It's interesting because CBC recently came out about mortgage fraud, and that's something I've covered like 7 times on this channel, going back all the way to 2021. So we know all about the mortgage fraud that has happened here in Canada, and there's been all kinds of other fraud. I mean, we can talk about the auto loan subprime bubble, where they literally would anyway, prior to this year, would just lend to anybody with a pulse. You didn't even need a SIN number. You didn't even need a social insurance number on the application. They would just put it through. And that is the sort of just crazy lending that we've seen. And the part of the parcel of all this lending is the net result, which is the bubble eventually bursts, which is what is going to happen right now. And it is going to have long-term ramifications, like I outlined in the video yesterday. If you look at what happened in Japan, if you look at what happened when bubbles this large have burst, it happens over decades. It has a massive effect on the economy. And this isn't the US in the respect that the US had the money printer as a backup, and they can just send stimulus checks out, and yes, it will affect them, but it's not going to affect them to the extent that if that happened in Canada, it would affect. And you have to think about what's happening in the UK too, because what's happening in the UK is interesting, because if Canada came out with a massive bailout plan and then the currency just tanked, and the government had to do a U-turn and say, okay, we can't do that bailout plan. We're going to have to do a bail-in now. And that would have huge implications for people. Little do they know. So let's see what the Royal Bank, the heroin dealer of the time, is saying that we're now heading into a recession. So let's see what they're saying. A recession will take hold in Canada in the first quarter of 2023. That's right around the corner. Sooner than it initially predicted, economists at Canada's largest bank said Wednesday. Royal Bank made waves in July when its economic shock became the first on Bay Street to forecast a recession. So do you reckon they started reining in lending? No. Just lend to everybody. All these young people getting into the housing market right now, they're just lending to them. Those people likely going to lose their homes. This is going to be a huge recession due to the amount of money printing and due to the amount of credit creation that has just took place over the past 2 decades. It's going to be absolutely colossal. And Royal Bank sees everybody's balance sheet. I mean, they see into financial institutions and bank accounts, and they can see how they're holding up. And the interesting thing is we have an insider, I don't even know his name, but he works at a bank here in Calgary, and he gives me the scoop on everything that's going on. And, you know, he says, like, it's very rare that people have over $10,000 of savings. And this is in supposedly one of the cities in Canada where people earn a lot more money. So that just goes to show you what financial health is really like. And these banks, they bought us products like the home equity line of credit, which is essentially just use your house like a cash ATM. And it, you know, people don't even think of housing debt as actual debt because they've just been numb to believe that prices only go up because of the recency bias. And then when a recession's right around the corner, even though it's staring them in the face, and we've been saying it on this channel for the past, since last year, since I started this channel, that this recession is on the way. And people don't appreciate how large it's going to be because of the normalcy bias. Studies have shown 70% of people suffer with this normalcy bias, which is expecting something to be better than it actually is because they want to hold on to a viewpoint that remains in an optimistic view for them because it gives them some peace of mind, when it would be better that they actually just created a plan for themselves, a backup plan of what they're going to do when they lose their job, how they're going to react different things, instead of just panicking when the rubber meets the road down there. So it says right here, cracks are forming in Canada's economy. Fan and Jansen wrote, housing markets have cooled significantly, and although the labour market remains strong, posting an unemployment rate of 5.2% in September, signs of weakness have appeared, including a loss of 92,000 positions over the past 4 months. So we've been talking about that and covering that. Actually, we've said, like, these job reports, I even posted on Twitter, and I said when that job report came out for September, I said that, you know, it doesn't matter. You've still got negative jobs, even with the jobs added this month. And it's like we've always said, things don't go down in a straight line. And that's really the reality of it. And it says right here, however, interest rates will play the most significant role in the economy's trajectory. And this is why. The economy isn't real, guys. It's built on debt. So basically, it's private debt and household debt. These two charts here, which you can see, and these two charts tell the story of why interest rates are going to affect the economy so much, because the economy isn't real. It's a distortion. It's just lots and lots of debt and lots of speculation that has been built up and built up and built up. I mean, so much of the economy now is built around housing speculation. It's unbelievable. It's twice the amount that the US was at the peak in 2008, when and we know how much unemployment that created after the fact. So this is just going to be like that, but on steroids. And that was with lots of stimulus packages. Interest rates were reduced to practically nothing. But the thing is, all these interest rate hikes that we've seen have a lagging effect. People will try and pay their mortgage as much as possible right to the end. They will try and pay their mortgage, and then eventually they end up defaulting on that. It's just the way it goes. Default rates are going to soar this winter, I believe, because you're just looking at people's balance sheets. It's not looking good. They're running out. They're running on fumes. So it also says the United States, they said, will continue hiking through the rest of the year to between 4.5% and 4.75% before taking a breather early next year. The higher borrowing costs will create headwinds that the economy won't be able to push through, Fan and Jensen wrote. More stubborn inflation trends over the coming months could yet prompt additional hikes and potentially larger decline in household consumption and a deeper recession. You know, the thing is, and I'm just going to put this up again, we are in times right now where people are just absolutely loaded with debt to an insane level that has never been seen in history before, especially in countries like Canada. People have built up, there has been a narrative that has been built up over time that the value of people's houses is real, and it's not. It is a price fluctuation. It's a distortion of the amount of debt that has been created because houses are bought and purchased with debt. And the same thing goes for stock valuations, and the same thing goes for business valuations, because businesses have been allowed to build up debt at the same rate. And we see it right now. And this is part of the reason why 2008 did not happen in Canada, is because you had fairly stable private sector debt. If you look prior to 2005 here, the line is fairly stable. You can see that. And then at 2007, 2008, it just shoots up indefinitely all the way to 2021, and we've got another peak there. It looks like a clearly defined peak that we have there. There's no denying that. And you've got the same one in the household debt chart too. So this is not good. This really isn't good, and it doesn't end well, because look at the amount of backtracking we have to do to get back to these levels in 2005. And you have to remember as well that there's been all the inflation that has built up during that time. So really we talk about real prices, because nominal prices mean nothing. Like if your house goes up 20% and your purchasing power has been eroded by 40%, you're a loser. So nominal prices don't really matter. It's what you can buy. For example, like right now, for instance, in Turkey, real estate went up 20% or something, or 30% last year. But the CPI measured around 20%. So it looked like around a 10% gain in the real estate prices. However, most base estimates of inflation in Turkey have been around 90%. So think about how much their purchasing power has been eroded, because the government is corrupt. They're just going to tell us lies. They'll continually feed us lies about the economy to make it look better, in order to make them look better, in order to say, we solved everything, and then they have a platform for the next election. It's a short-sighted way, and it's a short-sighted reason that we have these 4-year cycles, because it doesn't work. You need, in some ways, you need longer cycles, but it's so difficult because you're really just choosing between two parties, and it's just pick the least worst one in most cases. So that's where we really are. So if you enjoyed this, please check out that video, maybe check out that video there, and I will see you on the next one.